So my name is Paige Grudzian. I am the community organizer for the Stop Underage Drinking and Drugs Coalition here with the Guidance Center. So I will be one of your panel hosts, and I will be co-hosting with Destiny. So go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Hi, like she said, my name is Destiny. I'm a sophomore at Woodhaven High School, and I'm a part of the SUDS, like the coalition, the youth advisory board.
All right, and so we're going to start with introductions of our panel. So if Leanne, you want to start and just go through and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Leanne Hedke, and I'm a mom of 4 and a school administrator. I've been a teacher and a principal, and I have generalized anxiety disorder.
Hi, my name is Claire Hedke. I am Leanne's daughter. I am a preschool teacher, and I've been struggling with anxiety pretty much my entire life. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder when I was about 15, but it had manifested itself since my childhood, so excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I am Matthew Burnell. I am a school social worker in Gibraltar School District at Carlson High School. Hey. And believe it or not, being a social worker, I actually do have social anxiety. So there we go.
Hi, I'm Noah Bowers, and I'm a student at Roosevelt High School, and I'm a junior. And so this is pretty much the most anxiety-ridden part of my life right now.
You're doing great.
Thanks. Never done anything like this, so.
You're going to crush it. You're doing great. Exactly. Social work's tools right in the pocket. All right. So, all right. So what we're going to do is, first I'd like to, kind of a 2-part question, just a little bit about your experience with anxiety, and then just include how you know you're experiencing anxiety and like what it feels like. So whoever wants to start, if you want to start, go for it.
Here, I'm
Sure. So for me, social anxiety manifests in my social interactions. So my students that know me believe that I'm very outgoing and will tell jokes and all that sort of thing. But when you first get to know me, I'm very kind of closed off. It's kind of hard for me to do things in a social sphere. Like before on the first panel, my heart was racing out of my chest. I was slurring words. I was a hot mess. And that's kind of typical for me. So if I ever have to answer the phone, or when I worked in retail, had to go to a customer, it was a no-go. But yeah, that's basically my story with it.
For me, it started off especially when I was younger, a lot with what the movie was saying. I constantly was nauseous, and I'm the type of person, I hate throwing up. No one enjoys it, but it terrifies me to my core, to the point where I actually hold it down. It's gross, but so literally every night I would ask my mom, feel my forehead, like I'm sick. I know I'm going to be sick. From there, it just progressed more and more to just overthinking every minute aspect of life, every conversation I have with pretty much anyone. The moment I walk away, I'm thinking to myself, did I make them mad? Did I make them upset? Did I phrase this stupidly? Did I sound stupid? It just impacts pretty much every interaction I have, everything I go into.
So I still feel her forehead, and she's 24. I can tell you the exact time when I knew that I had anxiety, and I was 4 years old. I doubt that anybody in here will remember this show. Maybe someone, but I was watching Marcus Welby, MD. It was a medical. You remember, God bless you, I'm not alone. So it was a medical show, which there are all kinds of those, and someone on the show was having a heart attack, and I was 4 years old, and I was sitting on the couch, and I was sure that I was having a heart attack and that I was going to die. But I knew enough even at 4 years old to know, well, that's crazy. And so from 4 years old, I thought that I was crazy with the thoughts that I had. And certainly at that time, it wasn't something that was talked a lot about. This was definitely generational. My grandmother has had anxiety. Both of my parents were hypochondriacs, which I know was related to anxiety. My mom took nerve pills back in the day. And 3 of my children have anxiety. And I think the most stressful thing for me about it was that I wasn't able to recognize it in my children. As an educated adult, and not only educated, but as an educator, I didn't see what was happening in my own children. And I think we are really hard on ourselves as parents, that we think we should know everything and know how to fix everything. And that's just not the case. We just need to take it one day at a time.
So for me, with anxiety, I really didn't start experiencing it until probably junior year, because for most of my life I wasn't really too social to begin with. And when COVID hit, that kind of just got exacerbated. And I was indoors all the time, and I was doing online school, which was horrible. I wasn't that social, but I didn't realize that being away from people every day would just made everything worse, and that's where most of my problems developed. But so when I went into school junior year, I wanted to be different. I wanted to be more social, and that's where a lot of my anxiety came in. That's where I discovered that I had a lot of anxiety. But being able to do things like this, I like being social and I like being around people, and I'm really glad that I was given the opportunity to do this and have groups like with Ms. Smith and all those sorts of things that I could actually talk about it and work through it, because now I am a different person, and anytime that I do have anxiety now, it sort of takes the form when I'm alone and when my thoughts can get to me. So I think now the best thing it really is just to talk and just have other people.
All great responses, and thank you all for coming and talking, even if it is uncomfortable. It's greatly appreciated. The next question is, what would you wish your parents knew that would have helped you with your anxiety? For anyone to answer.
So, I think for young women especially, it manifested, kind of its peak when I went through puberty. And a lot of the symptoms that early on I displayed, I was labeled just like dramatic and a worrier and, kind of terminology along those lines. And it kind of played a big part into not necessarily not receiving help, but just kind of the entirety of my behavior and my action, my thoughts just being dismissed. It was just sort of a, that's Claire, she's just a worrier, she's just dramatic. And I feel like if a lot of the, worries and, dramatic behaviors, if they were like analyzed with a little bit more empathy and understanding, which I understand as a parent, you're already dealing with so much in your own life that it's really hard to take that step back and like try and understand the behaviors on a deeper level, especially when they're manifesting an attitude towards you, which I know it's never appreciated. But I think that if those behaviors were analyzed a little bit less as, why is she in such a mood today? Why is she being such a brat today? To more so, is something else on her mind? Then I think that would have gotten me the help sooner.
I think one of the things that, this is more as in my role as a mom with anxiety, I think talking about it with other moms and being open is really important. I think oftentimes we're embarrassed because we think we've done something wrong. There's something, we're embarrassed to say that, gosh, I think something might be wrong with Claire or with my other children. So I have sister-in-laws who I didn't know that my nieces and nephews were struggling with anxiety until they were adults, because we never talked about it. We didn't bring it up because you want to be the perfect mom, you want to be the perfect parents, you don't want to recognize and acknowledge that even you need help, because we all have to be perfect. We feel that, especially I think women feel that way. And so I really wish that I would have talked about it more, and I'm really grateful for the forums like this where we're talking about it, sharing it, because now people are beginning to recognize this really isn't an abnormal thing. This is a mental illness, and it can be supported, and there are many tools to help.
So I identify as a gay male, and so a lot of the triggers I also have with my anxiety stem from that identity. And something I wished my parents understood growing up is, and key takeaway is, be open when children talk to you. Understand that it's okay not to understand, and that they're not going to tell you everything, and that's okay. I think there's a huge emphasis this day and age of everyone being open and honest, and just the idea that we're all broadcasting our lives 24/7 on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, when in reality there's a whole piece we don't see. Even as a social worker, I don't see a lot of what my students go through. I'm not there to witness it. They don't tell me. And that's okay. Just understand that you can provide them a space to come forward if they choose to talk to you about it, and just be there for them. Listen to what they have to say. Understand, that there's help for them and that you can help them just by listening.
For me, I wish my parents are divorced, so I live with my mom. And so I wish that my mom would, even now, just not brush things off as much, because when my anxiety, like I was saying, was worse, it would if it was bad, it would come to a point to where I would have physical symptoms like my throat closing up. And I didn't realize until after I went to therapy that that was actually a thing happening because of my anxiety. And so I would complain to my mom about, my throat's closing up, and I don't know why, like my throat keeps closing off, but she would just keep brushing it off. So I think that is something, like everyone was saying, if there's a problem, you should definitely dive into what it may mean.
All great responses. Once again, good job. The next question is, it says, mild anxiety and depression has led me to miss out on a lot. I feel like my entire life is revolved around it, and my mindset has been completely crushed. When I try talking to my mom, she doesn't believe it's true. Any advice on how to get the help that I'm seeking?
You could just talk to anybody. I mean, if you look at what we have come with here today, I mean, there could be anything in your school, or you could even talk to a manager at your job if that is something available to you, or you can any really trusted adult, and especially friends, because friends will understand where you're coming from more, and that is a great first step if you just need somebody to talk to.
Oh, I love this question. So, as a school social worker, I can speak to the experiences of students in schools. And schools this day and age are so welcoming and open to students who have, anxiety, depression, anything like that. At Carlson High School, we have the Guidance Center come in every Monday, and we have a lunch where we have students come down. And we talk about what's going on. I have students that I see personally all throughout the week. Students are able to take a break when they need. The teachers, if I shoot off an email to the teachers and say, hey, so-and-so's having a really rough day, just take it easy, they will respond back and say, if they need to take a break, I'll send them down to you, and we have that connection. So seek out help from teachers, guidance counselors, admin, friends. Cling to those who trust you, who believe in you, because they're the ones that are going to help you through this in the end.
Yeah, I can't imagine how, it's entirely frustrating, especially when you don't feel like you have the support kind of where you most need it in the home environment, when that's supposed to be your safest environment, the calmest environment for you. As they both said, seeking support pretty much with anyone you trust. And it's can be hard because me and my friends, when we were in high school, we didn't necessarily have those kind of conversations. It's much more, common now to, talk about anxiety and depression and things like that. So just finding really anyone that you trust with that information, and maybe they won't approach you with that same, like maybe they don't come to you necessarily about what's stressing them out but just find someone that's a good listener. Above all, find someone that's a good listener, that's not going to talk over you, that's going to make you feel validated in what you're saying. Just seek the support really anywhere you can get it.
So I would advocate for school support too, because we have lots of support in schools today. But Paige, can I say that maybe they could watch a movie? Okay. So this is going to be public. Show it to your mom. Share it with your mom. I think that might be really eye-opening for her. It's hard as a parent to recognize all of the things that our kids are going through today. And I think that this movie is really helpful for that.
So, quick follow-up. Something that that I recommend to students and parents and everything like that is this conversation can be very difficult to have, and we as humans don't like to have difficult conversations. To make it a bit easier, something I recommend is having a code word or having a code phrase, something that you can all agree on, and if it gets texted in a family group chat or a family Discord or whatever you use to communicate with your family, or even if you, with a friend group in a friend group chat, if you say that word, then you all instantly know, hey, this person needs more assistance and we can help them. Or, hey, my child needs assistance. We're not going to talk about the anxiety, but I need to be there for them right now. So it's a great thing to have in place.
Yeah, so the goal with this is that the panel will be made public for viewing after. We have consents from the panelists to be able to share that information. So while getting access to the video is not always easy, unfortunately it's not something that is just out there. You have to pay for the rights for that to be able to show it. But the panel will be here and usable for you all to use as a conversation starter should you need that at some point. So I think that leads well into the next question. So what are some suggestions for how to start the conversation if you're struggling?
I gotta think about this for a minute, honestly.
So being a school clinician, there's a few different ways. Anxiety, we just watched a 1-hour presentation about what anxiety is. Obviously, not all of us know all that in-depth knowledge. So you saw me pull out a jar out of my pocket earlier. That jar is how I start the conversation, because actually, holding on it. So it's basically just paint, water, and glitter in a jar. And you can see you can't see all the way in the back, but the glitter is starting to settle. But if you shake the jar, it becomes cloudy and you can't see it through. So using tools like this, finding things that symbolize how you're feeling is a great way, because not all of us are going to understand, not all of us are going to know. So finding things to express how you feel is very helpful. Artwork, movies, anything like that.
Yeah, it can be super intimidating to even start off the conversation because, where do you begin? How do you describe everything you feel when you're feeling overwhelmed, when that's just kind of, it's a very good descriptive word, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but it doesn't necessarily do the feelings justice, because you feel a million different things at once, and when you're feeling them, you can sort of articulate them. I'm stressed out about this, but going into those conversations, they are uncomfortable to have. I think just trying to describe it a bit at a time. Don't try dive into the, you know, the deepest nitty gritty of, you know, everything all at once, trying to break down those conversations into smaller subjects at a time. If maybe it's something particularly at school that's stressing you out, maybe something particularly about the future, a future date or event, you know, breaking it down in smaller chunks can sometimes ease it, as opposed to trying to dive into the whole conversation at once.
So I tend to be I worry a lot about everything, and my anxiety appears mostly in the middle of the night, usually at about 2 o'clock in the morning when I wake up with a panic attack. And so I mentioned earlier that I was 4 when I knew that I was having my first experience with anxiety. I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 40s, and just kind of lived with it silently because I was embarrassed and I thought I was crazy. And so I started having these panic attacks at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got to the point where I'd had them so long, I was so exhausted I just couldn't function. And I finally went to the doctor and talked to the doctor. And I broke down and I was sobbing, and I said, I just can't sleep, and I wake up and I'm sure I'm having a heart attack, and I know I'm gonna die, and you know, my arms are numb and I'm experiencing all this. And I will never forget it. He said, whoa, you're fine. Do you know how many people I talk to every day that have this experience? And that was the moment that I realized I'm not alone, I'm not crazy, even though as an educator, I saw students experiencing it and saw different, you don't bring that back to yourself. So there are many people that you can talk to and get that conversation started, whether it's just saying the one thing that seems to be the most difficult challenge for you, sharing that with someone, and then getting that conversation going.
So, at least for me, I think the most important thing for getting into and talking to these problems, the first step should be to notice. If you have, I'll just use myself as an example. Like I'll start thinking about, oh, you know, I'm stressed out because you know I have to go to work, and it makes me stressed and it gives me anxiety and. But what I'll tell myself is, you know, it's fine. I'll get over it. This isn't a big deal. This is what everyone goes through. But the fact that it's stressing me out in the first place should be a cause for concern and something to talk about. So just being aware of where your problems lie is the first step in talking about them.
The next question is, how do parents set expectations and encourage goals without causing anxiety?
What I would recommend is talk to your child. See what their goals are. If they want to go to college, set goals in relation to college. If they want to go to a trade school, set goals in relation to a trade school. The assumption piece is where a lot of anxiety and where a lot of pushing comes into play.
I mean, I agree 100%. I think you just have to really let your child guide the conversation. Again, making all those assumptions about, okay, everybody's going to college because that's what we do in the world. That's how we're going to be successful. And then we have 4 years of college debt or 3 years of college debt and we don't finish. And then we're still trying to figure it out. So really just listening and talking and helping your child to set goals, setting goals together. I think that's really, really key, even from when they're little. You know, setting some very achievable goals, not things that are out of reach, not expectations that you're always going to get 20 words right on the spelling test. They don't have to always get 20 words right on the spelling test, to the point where they're so panic-stricken as 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds that they have 10 spelling words and they get one wrong and they're sobbing. I mean, we've got to stop putting that kind of pressure on our kids.
So yes, I completely agree. For me, talking about my goals is it's something that I'm passionate about, because that's what, like, my goals, that's what I want to do in life. And when I'm actually talking about that, for my future and how I'm going to achieve that with an adult, it's much better than, oh, you just try and deal with your problems in the moment, and like, this is just anxiety. It's much better to actually try and build and talk about my goals with an adult.
All right. So a lot of the questions that we're getting, I'm going to kind of summarize into one. We have a lot of people talking about how to cope with the different feelings of anxiety. So what are some coping skills that each of you use or often recommend for other people to use?
The easiest thing for me is always just distract myself with whatever is nearest. Honestly, the best thing is just people. And, you know, sometimes just like kind of getting straight into a conversation, starting it right away, start trying to talk, especially if you're feeling anxious or negative, is hard. But it is incredible to just talk to people, have a laugh, and have a good time. And if that's not available, you could text them or call them. And if that's not available, then just do what you love. Just try and find some way to make you laugh or make you smile. Or another incredible thing to do is just go out and exercise, because that just, it feels so good. It doesn't sound like it feels good when you're thinking about it, but when you do it, it feels great. And that's just like one of the best things for me.
How long do I have? Who wants some free therapy? So I do a lot of coping skills teaching in the school setting. I have entire units that I'll do with students. I have anything from mindfulness techniques, which is the idea of sitting with something, processing it in the moment, and then just kind of releasing it. Last panel, I let everyone in what we call the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, which takes all of your senses and kind of grounds them back into reality and brings your thinking back into the frontal lobe. Exercising is great. It's a great distraction skill. A lot of people tend to think that there's only positive coping skills and negative coping skills. In reality, the students that I work with know that there are quadrants. There are 4 types of coping skills. The 2 that I focus on in the school setting are distraction skills and processing skills. Distraction skills are what you said, like working out, going for a run, listening to music, watching a movie. It's anything to take your mind off of the stimulus that's causing the anxiety. Processing skills are what we do in therapy or what you can do on your own. It's things like journaling, talking with a parent, talking with a friend, anything to kind of realize what's going on, talk about it, and then kind of get off the subject for a bit. So those are the 2 big ones. So find what works for you in those 2 categories, and you should be on the right path.
Yeah, I can't really exaggerate enough the importance of finding what works for you, because what works for dozens and dozens of others just may not be your cup of tea. So, you know, I have my own practices of what I do in those moments, but, you know, they often relate back to the fact that I'm an overthinker. So a big thing for me is I'll break it down in best absolute, you know, if I'm stressed out about a circumstance, absolute best case scenario, absolute worst case scenario, and just kind of, you know, listing pros and cons and things like that, and taking a logical approach to, you know, why am I so afraid of this? What's the absolute worst thing outcome that, you know, could happen? What's the best outcome that would happen? And a large majority of the time it falls within a better outcome. You know, obviously you're going to have some disappointments in those aspects, but really analyzing the fear and kind of just preparing myself for what's going to happen, you know, always centers me in a more controlled way.
I'm going to speak just specifically to panic attacks because that was the thing that was most debilitating for me and the thing that I needed to get under control. And so for me, the exercise, so your heart is racing generally really fast, you're sweating. And so just breathing in and holding your breath because that creates pressure on your heart so that your heart can't race. Counting, again, distracting, getting into the frontal lobe. That's really important. I often have to talk to somebody, because when I'm talking to somebody, I know I'm not dying. Because truly, oftentimes with anxiety or panic attacks, you really believe that that's what's happening. And people that don't experience, my husband has no clue what this means, but he's great at talking people off the ledge. He's the person that often I have to wake up in the middle of the night, and he has stories that he tells me because I can't get myself off the ledge. Ice cubes on the neck, ice cubes in your hand. There's a lot of resources out there that you can look at. Try to find the thing that works best for you.
Okay. The next question is, will expressing my anxiety make people who depend on me or others see me as weak and unable to help them?
No. No. That actually, if anything, makes you incredibly stronger than anything you could believe. Because, when you think about strength, it's usually, physicality, how much you can lift, things like that. But what's really strong is if you can talk to your problems about somebody and open up, no matter the situation or no matter what the problem is. Because what that really does is opens up, you opening up to one person opens up to the next person and the next, and that just makes everybody happier. And that's a great thing. So that is true strength.
Yeah, going off that, having to put up with something like anxiety 24/7, never knowing when it's going to truly pop up, or never knowing when you're going to have to just cope with something that's always following you, doesn't make you weak. It makes you strength. It makes you resilient. When I first started working in Gibraltar, one of the things I did, I had a whiteboard in my room, and I would always put up a question of the week, and I would say, in one word, define, and I would put a word. The first ever word I had on my board was define strength. And you'd be surprised the responses I got from students, but overall, one of the top words was resilience. So, definitely makes you stronger.
Being vulnerable with people is such an intense strength. Often it makes people comfortable, reciprocating and being vulnerable with you. It doesn't diminish your strength by any means by opening up about those feelings. If anything, in my opinion, you seem like a more well-rounded person, because as fantastic as it would be to just be great all the time and not have to deal with any of those fears or worries, most people, everyone struggles with something. Everyone, some people more, others less, but no one's ever going to think lesser of you for it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
All right, so someone asked what they can do to help someone going through a panic attack. So,
Well, for me, being able to talk to a person is really key. I think it depends on the person. I can't talk Claire off of a panic attack. If I talk to her, I'm going to set her off because I'm trying to solve the problem for her. So you have to kind of figure out what works best. And for her, it is more of a distraction. It's just, so what are you going to do this weekend? And even though I know that in my head, when it happens, I still try to solve the problem because that's just who I am. So I think learning as you're talking to an individual what it is that meets their need, generally it's a distraction. It's getting their mind off of what's happening at that moment, whether they're panicking about a test or a meeting that they have or a presentation that they have to give, whatever it might be. And quite often a panic attack, at least I don't know for other people, but my panic attacks don't come in the moment. My panic attacks come after. So after whatever crisis has occurred, a week later is when the panic attack will come. And so they kind of come out of the blue. But I think just taking the time to talk to the person, try to distract them is usually going to be one of your best strategies.
I would agree. Distraction, like she said, I cannot call her. I love her to death. Cannot call her. But that's what works for me, and I feel like with panic attacks especially, it's a very in the moment type of thing. You know, anxiety is more so like not necessarily evenly spread out, but panic attacks are a big burst in one moment. So yeah, like she had said, just really figuring out what works for that person in terms of getting their mind off of that immediate feeling of, you know, I can't breathe, you know, I can't, you know, my brain is shutting down. Getting them out of that headspace is kind of what's most important.
What they said. No, but honestly, like, so the average panic attack, on average, science tells us lasts 15 minutes. That's from start to finish. Obviously, there's outliers. Some are quick, some last hours on end. The main thing you can do, like everyone has said before, is focus on distraction skills. At the same time, another kind of way to calm someone down quickly is get them back breathing on a stable rhythm. I do that, some people are gonna laugh, through bubbles. Just because you can't blow bubbles if you're hyperventilating. So my students know that I have about 6 or 7 bubble wands in my office. If a student comes in with a panic attack, the first thing I say to them is, we're gonna blow bubbles. It's distracting and it's focusing on their breath. So, great skill.
I think I've only experienced really one panic attack, and I haven't really been around anybody with a panic attack, so I can't really say, but what they said.
The next question is, how do you deal with relapsing with your anxiety and depression after overcoming it in the past?
I mean, just look at what worked for you in the past, and then if you need to, just rearrange and build things, incorporate old skills and new skills, because a lot of what makes dealing with that stuff is you need skills and you need to know what happens, and it is okay if you relapse, because then you can learn new skills.
That is a great question. So actually, personally, I grew up, born and raised in New York, right north of New York City. I'm only 2 years in Michigan. So when I moved here, my entire support network had to change. My entire coping skill network had to change. I hadn't had an anxiety attack or a panic attack in a while, so I didn't have to do that transition when I transitioned to Michigan. Sometimes you can use the same coping skills. In cases like this, you're gonna have to create a whole new coping skill network. But you should always have at least one or two that you can always rely on. So, yeah.
I think as well it's super important to just be kind to yourself. I think it's something that most people don't give themselves enough of, and it's very, very easy to overanalyze and sit there and think to yourself, I was doing so good for so long. You know, I had comments from others telling me, you know, you really seem like you're in a good headspace and things like that, and it's very encouraging, and it's, you know, it's a great place to be, but just, I wouldn't focus more so on, you know, I'm back in this, you know, negative mindset, because that can send you spiraling as well. If you're just focusing on, you know, I was doing so good, now I'm not. You know, hyper focusing on that can also bring you down. So I think it's very important to just be kind to yourself, continue practicing coping skills that were working for you, develop new ones if need be, go from there.
I think recognizing that different things occur, when different things occur in your life, whether or not it's you know, going through puberty or having something tragic happen in your life or something wonderfully happy in your life, that you may have recurrences. For me, one of the things that I started focusing on was finding joy, and so I really know what brings me joy. And I make sure that I experience joy every single day, which then I have something, I think, to look forward to. I don't know that makes sense, but it's a discovery that I made about my own anxiety in the last 10 years that has been really helpful. And it started with a book called Hygge, Hygge. And it's a book about the Danes and how they find happiness. And for me, that book has been just a huge gift. So I think just finding what works for you and continuing. If it's not working, there are so many strategies. There's something that will work for you, and believing that is important too.
By the way, it is okay to cry. It is okay to cry if you're facing an anxiety attack. Men in the room, it is okay to cry.
I was gonna say, even if you're a man, it is okay.
All right, so this is going to be our last question. I know we had a lot of other questions submitted. I am going to get with the panelists and have them provide me with those answers to the other questions, and we'll get those sent out to the email that was registered for the event. So keep an eye out for that. But the last question, an answer from each of you: what is one thing that you would like to, what's one thing you want someone who's experiencing anxiety to know?
You can overcome it. You can definitely overcome it. And I know you said one thing, but you're not alone. And it will be okay. It can always be overcome. Any problem, anything negative that you're feeling, anything that feels just even a little off, it's something that could be changed to just feel better. And you just need to know that it can change.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, it does get better, and there's always an answer. It might not feel like it in the moment, but there's always a solution. It's okay to discuss your feelings. It's okay to rely on someone else if you need to. It's okay to have these conversations. It's better that we have these conversations than we lose someone to something like this. So it's okay. There's help available. And if someone in this audience is going through this right now, there's an audience full of people here who are also trying to learn more. So just let that sink in and sit with that feeling.
Like I had said before, be kind to yourself, be patient. You know, I understand, you know, expecting to maybe begin therapy or try out some coping skills, and it can get discouraging because maybe you need to try 6 different therapists. Maybe you need to, you know, try dozens of different coping skills, but just being patient with yourself, really sitting in those feelings of what works for you and what doesn't, sharing that information with others, so if you are in crisis mode, other people can assist you as well. And, you know, to keep your close supports close and aware of how you're feeling.
I believe that my anxiety and panic attacks have made me a stronger person. I think that I'm a better person. I'm better at everything that I do in life because of the experiences that I've had. I believe that I'm able to help other people because of the experiences that I've had. And I think don't devalue the anxiety and panic attacks either, because you are stronger because of them. And so I think that's something that we often are view it as all negative. Oh, these terrible panic attacks, this anxiety is terrible, but it does make us stronger.
If you are the parent of a school-age child as well, or if you work in a school and you have a school social worker, talk to them. I have a list of resources on my desktop that I distribute to parents, and it has a list of 20 different people that are accepting clients for counseling in Wayne County right now. It has lists for food assistance, lists for renting assistance. It even has a list of places where you can get furniture if you need furniture, like a bed. So talk to the social worker.
Thank you so much. You guys did an awesome job. Can we give our panelists a round of applause?
Thanks.
And our moderators as well. I think our moderators a round of applause as well. I think the great thing about this discussion, this is our second showing, is that the themes are still the same, even though the panelists have changed. And so if you need additional resources or if you need assistance, please remember that the Guidance Center located in Southgate is here to serve the Wayne County community. Thank you to our student, who was the only student on this panel. I know you were nervous in the beginning, I could tell, but you did an awesome job. And then at the end, you'll see people standing with the Everybody versus Stigma shirts. If you have additional questions or need information, please reach out to us and we can give you that information. We'll also, as Paige said, be distributing the questions with the answers via email, whatever email that you registered with, so that you will have that information as well. And then I think that is all. Thank you for coming out tonight. We're hoping to have more conversations like this because we think it's so important for our community to start to have these discussions and also have discussions with students, with kids, with parents, people that have lived experience, because as professionals sometimes it comes out better from a person that's had a lived experience. So thank you for coming. Have a great evening.